All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar series on career management and when and how to transition jobs during a pandemic. We have a fabulous panel here that's being led by Dr. Shante Bolton, and I'm just here to provide the house rules. Please keep your mics muted during the presentation. Please ask your questions in the chat during and after the presentation. We will collect those and ask them to the panelists during the Q&A session. And remember the golden rules here. Now we'll have a welcome and a official greeting from AABHE'S president. And Derek, do you need to share your screen again? Uh-oh. Derek, we heard you earlier.
Ooh.
I think he's trying to join. I'll mute myself and see if that'll help. Okay, Derek should be, he has just rejoined us. So Derek, are you ready for your welcome and a quick overview of AABHE for our guests and our members? Well, maybe we'll have Derek bring us on home. And Shante, are you ready?
I am. I'm always ready. So welcome. My name is Dr. Shante Bolton. I currently serve as the Vice President and Deputy COO at Tulane University. And I just want to give each and every one of you all an absolute warm welcome today. AABHE is a premier organization that is dedicated and committed to serving Blacks in higher education and other indigenous communities and people of color. And I am just so thankful that you all are here. Today, we're going to talk about a myriad of things, but it's all going to be centered around helping you to give some life and energy to your career, not only where it is now, but as you think about where you want to go. We want to be a part of that journey. We've pulled together a stellar panel that I believe and I hope will just inspire you and motivate you and give you some nuggets of wisdom. We will have a moment, so don't think we won't talk more about AABHE in detail before you leave here today, but we're gonna go ahead just out of respect of your time and knowing that sometimes technology doesn't always work the way we want it to. We're gonna move forward. So before I introduce the panel, I do want to thank each of you all for attending the webinar today. For some, this is the first step towards investing in your career trajectory. And for others, it will feel more like a reinvestment, right? Whatever your reasons are, we thank you for choosing this hour to share with us. And now, without further ado, let's introduce this dynamic panel and we can jump right into the discussion. I'd like to start with you, Kim. Please introduce yourself, tell us what university you're with, what your role is, and your years of experience in the field of your expertise.
Certainly. Well, thank you, Dr. Bolton, and good morning and good afternoon to some of you. My name is Kim Fleming. I am the Learning and Organizational Development Manager at Tulane University. I'm with the Office of Human Resources. I know that position, that title was a mouthful, but I'll be sharing a little bit with you in regards to my experience. I have approximately 10 to 12 years in this particular area in as far as learning and development and human resources background. I also have experience in higher education as well as the corporate segment, in which I'll be sharing some examples for both, for those of you that, those job seekers or those of you that are in both areas or market segments. Thank you.
All right, Carla Major.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon to everyone, and I'll just be real down to it. Who dat? Thought I'd let you all get with it, who dat? But I am the Assistant Vice Chancellor for Human Resources and Professional Development at Delgado Community College here in New Orleans. I am responsible for all parts and pieces of HR and all parts and pieces that people may call HR. I will tell you my years of experience in the HR arena. I will just stick to over 25 years because if I go any further, you ask me about my AARP card. So I'll leave that alone. But I would also like to say to you that I have worked in HR segments from nonprofit to corporate to higher education. I've managed from 24 people to 2,400 people, 24 hours a day. So I appreciate the opportunity and hopefully I can make a difference for someone today in the audience. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, Aaron, good to see you.
Yeah, sorry about that. My email was all of a sudden being very slow, so apologies about being late. My name is Erin Rains, and I'm a principal with Parker Executive Search, and I am pleased to be here today to speak with all of you. Thank you to Dr. Bolton for the invitation, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you. Brittany, bring us on home.
Okay, well, good morning. My name is Brittany Richardson. I am the Director of Human Resources at Dillard University here in New Orleans. I would like to say my general experience in HR is over 15 years in some parts higher ed, corporate, nonprofit. It's just really been a pleasure to grow in this field. I've tackled everything from Title IX, if those are familiar with that area, benefits. We're talking about employee development. We're talking about just every area of human resources because we know that this job is all duties assigned. This is just really a great opportunity to network, to ask questions, to get a feel of, whether higher ed is particularly your role in moving forward in your career searches, or if it's in a non-higher ed position. But this is the great group of panelists to really get down to the meat of what is next in our career and what is next in my job search. So I'm pleased to be here today. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So let's jump in. The big question that was most commonly submitted is to switch or not to switch. All right, is changing jobs during a pandemic even a good idea, right? There's so much uncertainty going on. I mean, is this really a good time to take stock of your career, to think about the direction it's going in, maybe to reassess what your next career move should be? If you could talk to us a little bit about that, Carla, and maybe share with the attendees why. Is this a good time to switch or not?
Okay. Well, it could be classified as having a baby. Is it really a good time? Is there ever a good time? But let me say this. It's all about how you plan, okay? And I think the first order of business is to look at what is your career today? And what do you want your career to be? What is your long range goal for your career? And then you sit down with a very simple process of the pros and the cons. What would be the pros and the cons if I remain where I am? Yes, I do know my work team. I know my present work, but am I challenged? Then you look at the pros and cons of if you were to switch. Where would you be switching to? Would it be a different industry? Would it be the same industry, but a different position? So I think what you have to do is some homework before you can determine if to switch or not switch. And that homework entails, once again, planning. Where do you want to go? How do you want to get there? You have the map for your destination. You are responsible for your destination. So you want to look at, what do I need to do if I want to switch? Can I do that at this time to switch? Do I have children that I have to consider? Do I have elders in my family? Do I have a spouse I have to consider? There's so many things to consider. But again, it has to be what you want to do. And if you want to do it, you will get it done, I promise you. But again, you have to do the homework and you have to do the research. Because sometimes we all know, we say, oh, the grass looks greener. In some cases, it may be greener. But if you don't do the homework, you don't know that. So my words to that question would simply be, Do your research, do your homework, and use that simple process, pros and cons of my present position and where I'd like to go. I tried to make that very tight bundle for the answer. Thank you.
Um, Erin, what would you add to that from the perspective of a search firm? So a lot of institutions use search firms, especially for mid to senior level leadership positions, as I'm sure we have a ton of leaders on the call today. So can you talk to us about, from your perspective, do you think this is a good time to switch or not, and why? And then if it is, talk to us about what are the things that universities, that even search firms are looking for as their screening candidates?
Yeah, good question. I would say to that, I think in the last, what is this, 8 months now, things have shifted dramatically. In March, no one was interested in going anywhere. They were very committed to their institution. There was a lot of uncertainty going on in terms of how they were going to operate for the rest of the semester into the summer. There were just a lot of unknowns in terms of how do you function amongst the pandemic. And so now I would say probably once the fall semester started, people started to be more open to opportunities. And, there was, I think, a call for more leadership opportunities than we anticipated. I think right now leadership is very important on any college campus. As you read the Chronicle or Inside Higher Ed every day, things are shifting, things are changing, decisions have to be made quickly. And so while certain people feel committed to their institution, I think others also still are saying, well, what other opportunities are available for me right now? You see a lot of people retiring, either at the end of the academic year or the calendar year. People are, there's interim leadership, but then you kind of move past that and they say, no, we need good, strong leadership. Can we still do that amongst the pandemic? And you can. It just has to be done differently. And that goes back to the search process. Things are more virtual. You may or may not get an on-campus visit where you actually go and get to talk to people. I can't tell you how much time I spend conversations with people to say, how do we get to closure? Am I comfortable hiring somebody I've never seen? And are they comfortable coming to a place they've never seen, sight unseen? So, you just have to you can get to the end game, and we've been able to do that. But you just have to do it differently. And I think as candidates, they ask me questions. Well, what are their COVID guidelines on campus? Am I really going to get a good sense of what I'm walking into when I can't meet people and talk to them and ask questions and feel and laugh and, really build that camaraderie? So going back to what Carla said, you have to do your research, I think, even more, particularly at the administrative level, because there's so many other unknowns happening as we kind of deal with this on a daily basis. And also, protecting your family. So it's about coming to the community. Can I still look for a home? Can I still inquire about K-12 schools? Are the local schools virtual? Are they in person? Do I want to risk my family in that situation? Do I want to risk my family moving across the country? So you see a mix, and people are in different places and in different stages of their lives. And so I would say that universities are becoming more flexible as it relates to those things and the questions and the concerns that candidates have, quite frankly, because this is, an unprecedented time and an unprecedented situation, and nobody really has the answers until you ask the questions. So I think that goes back to doing the research.
You touch on something I'd like to get to go a little deeper on. I'd also like to hear from Brittany on this. Given the social justice concerns that we've seen sweep the nation, and I'd even say the world, what do you think? Because I want to be mindful of how I frame the question, so that's my hesitancy. But what do you think is appropriate for candidates when they're in an interview process to ask as it relates to a university's position or perspective on social justice, on Black Lives Matter, on any of the concerns that an individual may have that goes to their personal sense of safety, sense of belonging, and or their moral compass? Is this fair game when you're going through an interview process?
It is, but I think it's important as we talk about this to do your homework first. Any organization, if that is important to you, diversity and inclusion, the culture, you want to make sure you understand that. A lot of times, and this is also for employers, this is the time during this time to make sure that your organization kind of highlights what's going on. Make your presence known either on your website, like where does your organization fit in this narrative, and make sure that it looks like the people that you're trying to engage. So I think it's really important to do your homework. To frame the question, and it could be questions of, hey, I'm just trying to get a sense of the organization and what is its mission? What is your thoughts about diversity and inclusion? Could you share a little bit more about the demographic within your organization? These are some of the questions that you can ask in an appropriate kind of way. How do you give back to the community? Those things are questions definitely in the interview, because you got to remember, when you interview, it's not about just you interviewing them, interviewing you. It's about you making sure this is also a good fit, as well as you're seeking employment with an organization. So I think that will build the rate of success if you are to make this decision to accept or be hired in whatever organization.
And I would like
to chime in.
Yeah, I would like to add to that. I think those are very valid points. And the other concern or question that I'm hearing talking to people all over the country is, I see what the university's doing, I see what their message is, but if I move my family to, now that we've had an election, people are only wanting to move to states that were blue, not red. Call me back when I, go to a community that I feel comfortably. I mean, this is really what the feedback I get. No, not interested in moving to that state based upon last week. That's just not of a concern to me. I would say now more than ever, those really bold, hard questions are on the table to be asked. I would say don't be afraid to ask those questions, whereas maybe 3 or 4 years, people probably tiptoed a little bit around those hard diversity questions. Ask them. They know it's coming. I think for the right person, they should expect it from that standpoint. But it's an addition to, can I be successful from a professional perspective? Can my family be successful in the community? What's it going to look like when my kids go to school? What's it going to look like when I walk down the street? Based upon my, race or gender or anything from that perspective. I mean, I think it's more than just, come to my institution because you can be successful in this professional setting. Absolutely, that's very important. But I think people are thinking more broadly about that. What's happening in the community, not only on the campus, but the community from a national perspective when it comes to all of these issues, particularly the racial tensions that are going on across the country. So I would say now, and I encourage candidates that I talk to, ask the hard questions and ask them early. And I think that puts, people in a place to think about things differently than they would have in the past. And you really, really find out if it's the right fit for you in the role and in the community. And then you can make your decision going from there.
All right, thank you. Kim, I'm gonna bounce this one over to you. At a time when people are feeling more disconnected, but at the same time, we have so many Zoom sessions, just like the one we're having today, people feel sort of zoomed out, right? What role does networking continue to play in the current job market? And I want you to think about this across industries, because we have some individuals on the call that may not be in higher education. So this I think is a question that really stretches across many industries. But what role do you think that networking plays in the current job market? And how should attendees think about reimagining what networking looks like in a COVID world?
So yes, to answer your question in its simplest form, networking is a huge, huge piece. And for those of you that have already established networking, you want to continue those relationships. But first and foremost, it kind of goes back to what Carla and Brittany mentioned earlier. You want to develop a strategy. So first and foremost, think of the reason and the purpose why you want to network. So what is your goal? What is the end game? Are you looking to network for new career opportunities? Are you new to an industry or position and you're looking for those ideas and support from others in the field? And then that way you can develop your strategy. Next, I'd also suggest just take the time to examine your networking circles. So some of us have created existing networking circles, But there's a saying that if you're the smartest person in your circle, you need to get a new circle. It's the same with networking. Again, assess your circle. If you're outgrowing your circle, start looking at expanding outside of your level of comfort. Now it's a great time to start looking at organizations such as AABHE. Yes, I did plug that in there. Again, AABHE offers very diverse individuals. There's a large amount of talent and experience. I always recommend and speak kindly of my cohorts and highly of, again, all of the individuals that are part of this organization. So start looking at other organizations, professional development organizations, and allow network to become a skill for you. I believe that, you know how we say soft skills? I also call them success skills, because those are the skills that you need to be successful. And then lean on your current connections. So you mentioned zoomed out or Zoom fatigue, as I like to call it. But if you've already established current connections, try a different form of outreach. Maybe try video calls. Also, in case you haven't forgotten, the phone is not obsolete. So you still can reach out to your connections through a phone call. Some people may experience that personal touch. Also, my favorite is Teams. So Teams, Microsoft Teams, in case anyone is familiar or not familiar, we can get that information to you. But Microsoft Teams is a great way. I utilize it for more of those intimate chats, those one-on-one conversations. It's a little less cumbersome than Zoom. And again, it's for those smaller groups. And it's more conducive for that one-on-one environment or connection. And then social media, leverage your social media. Facebook has some great networking groups. LinkedIn Learning, as a matter of fact, we were hosting a small conference and we needed an individual or a subject matter expert. So the very first thing I did was tap into LinkedIn Learning. So again, LinkedIn Learning, Twitter. Also, I remember speaking to a colleague saying that they've expressed to me that they focused on establishing a sound resume as well as a sound CV, but they have not leveraged the social media platform. Again, if you're not technically savvy, grab a colleague, grab a friend, if you have kids, grab kids, grandkids, anyone, because I'm sure they're savvy enough. But again, it's important to keep in touch with those critical contacts. So again, to answer your question, extremely important, and establish and nurture those relationships.
Great. A great response. I also want to build on a piece of what you said, and it's because it came up as a reoccurring theme in that were submitted by attendees, as well as things that I know even in my role that I've encountered as we seek to hire positions. People are wondering, given all of the changes in higher education, are people really hiring, right? Because we're seeing so many stories about layoffs and furloughs and all kind of things going on. Is it, or are there universities out there hiring? I think, Aaron, you can speak to what you're seeing on the market, and also as it relates to the candidate, right? We have in higher education a very broad spectrum of ages and demographics, but is there a point by which it's like, because I'm 55 and over, I shouldn't even look at a new job? Or is there opportunity for us to really think about how skills can be leveraged to make your time and your season in life to be an actual advantage over someone who may be, say, a recent college grad? Aaron, can you build on that for us?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of timing, and I come from the administrative executive level perspective. So our firm does typically department chair and above searches. And so, yes, we started to see actually quite more searches than we anticipated at the beginning of the pandemic. We're in a great place, I think, right now than we expected. In terms of faculty positions, I think so. I know that it's a little daunting depending on what state you live in and what institution might be going through budget cuts and just really kind of other cost saving measures from that standpoint. But you also will see a lot of people, I think, again, going back to my point about retiring, when you have faculty at the full professor stage, they are more than likely thinking about maybe it's time for me to transition to do something else. Managing and working in academia right now amongst COVID is very, very difficult. And I've people all the time that said, I'm tired. I'm tired. This is great. I love higher education, but I'm tired. And this might be the time for me to, think about going and doing something else. And so, but that being said, I wouldn't, no matter what age you are, I wouldn't let that thought, preclude you from exploring an opportunity. People ask me that question all the time, and I think it's about whatever age you are, enthusiasm that you have for the position, passion for the role, experience. I think very experienced people right now are needed, but also innovation. So, no matter what age you are you thinking outside the box? Are you knowledgeable about trends in the field? What are other institutions doing, that might benefit you, or that might be an asset that maybe another candidate didn't mention? So there are all kinds of ways that I think you can overcome whatever obstacle you think you may have. But I always tell people, don't rule yourself out, right? If you're interested in any kind of way, go for it. And, I think you can prepare yourself along the way to really overcome any questions or challenges that, may come along.
Thank you. Carla and Brittany, I'd like to build on a piece there. So as internal constituents who are overseeing or supporting and facilitating the hiring process, what would you recommend around how a candidate might uniquely position themselves during that interview and search process with an institution to just make themselves more attractive, to stand out more? What type of things is your university looking for?
Brittany, you want to go?
Okay. So I would always tell people, when you're doing your job search, revisit your resume. Make sure that once you look at the position, see how your skills are adjacent to the needs and the requirement of that that job, that entity. You want to make sure that you did your homework. We keep talking about that. That's so important. And what makes sense. I think that a clean resume, one that's easy to read, one that highlights your skills, your knowledge and ability, is so crucial. HR professionals get about 1 trillion, and I'm being maybe modest, resumes a day. So what makes you stand out of all candidates? I think if it's easy to read, I think if I can scan your resume and get the meat of what your qualifications are, it makes it easier for me to say, this is the person that I want to talk to. Now, when we get into the interview process, then I have the opportunity to ask more and get into the meat. Can you explain your skills? So don't make it too lengthy or wordy. Just go straight to the points that are important to the job requirements and qualifications. Also, I think it's important to represent yourself well. If there's questions, if you need to, make sure, identify who's the hiring manager, send a simple email. Don't call too much, but I think that the reach out is just introducing yourself. And is there any other additional information I may be able to provide you to kind of help the situation, and help the hiring manager to determine if this is the person that I want to discuss further in this role. That's just some of the things that I think are important. Carla, you can add if there's anything.
I was gonna step back for a moment based on something when Aaron talked about age. I just want to say that age is simply a number. That is all it is. So I couldn't agree with you more. If you have the passion and excitement, go for it. Mm-hmm. But back to what we would be looking for at our university is really experience, and not just necessarily experience in terms of, oh, this person can teach a class, but what does this person bring to the class? What does this person bring to the position? What experiences they have? How well-rounded is this person? Is this person involved in our community? Does this person care about our community? If they were moving here, would they fit? Would they fit into this organization? So while you have all the skills, you have to ensure that you fit, because as someone said earlier, it's an interview of you, but it's also you interviewing that company or that organization.
Right, exactly.
So you want to bring out what experiences you have, and you want to be prepared, as Brittany indicated, not necessarily on the resume, but you want to know your resume so that when you reach the interview, which is the next step, you are prepared to talk about the specific examples. You can speak, you can demonstrate the examples and the things that you have done in terms of, yes, I have experience working with executive recruiting. here are some of the things that I've done. I have experience with turnover. At my last position, I reduced turnover from this percentage to this percent, and this is how I did it. So you're exactly right. We're looking for experience. We're looking for people that will fit into what we have, will fit the culture. This is why doing your homework is very important. And I know we've said this over and over, and you feel like you're probably in class today, but doing your homework is very important. But you want to know the culture and you want to know what am I going into as best that you possibly can. So I think that what we are looking for again is individuals that come with experience, but can demonstrate that experience and can speak to that experience beyond what you would only do at your desk or if you're teaching a class. If it's a class, we certainly want you to bring in life experiences to our students. So
Can I add one thing to Carla's point? A simple question we tend to ask, and I probably would say my counterparts would ask, why you for Dillard? And that's a loaded question. And it may be why you for Tulane or why you for Delgado or whatever institution. Be prepared to answer that question because that is the point where you highlight your skills and experience. Not because, oh, I'm looking for a job and I want this title, but why you, as Carla mentioned, the experience. This is the moment that you sell, let's just be honest, sell your expertise, you sell your knowledge. And I think that is so important because right there, I think the hiring manager knows or has a great idea if you're going to be a good fit for this position. Also, be prepared to answer situational questions. And that's so important because that is, give me an example of a time you did X, Y, and Z. See, because we're talking about soft skills that need to be developed, right? And so you have to be able to provide that edge that is going to be greater than your counterpart. If I have two people with the same experience, then what's going to differentiate me from the next candidate? And I think that's where you get to sell who you are and what you bring to the table as far as why I'm the best person for this position.
and that's the exact words for our question. Why are you the best candidate for this position? So yes, you also want, one last thing I was going to say, when you look at the position description and you look at your resume and your skills, you may not have the exact thing that they are asking for, but you have a skill that's transferable. You have to consider yourself as a marketable commodity. And where can I work? I'm marketable. So here I have these individual skills and they can be transferred into whatever it is they may be asking for. So don't get disappointed if you look at the job, you're interested and you say, but I don't quite have that and I don't quite have, but what do I have? And that's where you look at what skills you have that are transferable. What makes you the marketable commodity and why are you the best qualified candidate for this position?
And the other thing I would add to that too, just real quick to your point, Carla, is yes, what transferable skills you have. And I think one of the things that people ask me, what, for instance, fundraising experience. This says you have to fundraise. I don't have that. Will they automatically exclude that? Never let that be a deal breaker. You may not have direct fundraising experience just based upon structural, kind of organizational things that you're different at your institution because each institution is different. But say, this is how I would do it. This is how I would approach the situation. These are the skills I have that would allow me to be successful, in that specific area. So I try to encourage people to think about all aspects from that standpoint. I don't have it I don't have a demonstrated example to tell you, but I know what that entails. So let me tell you how I would go about doing it.
Awesome. So far we've talked about and have learned that we need to evaluate the cost benefit of whether or not we should transition a job right now during the pandemic and look at what the pros and cons are to us. We've also talked about the fact that you are in control of your career and that you can't leave it up to supervisors or colleagues or others to always necessarily see the talent in yourself, but you need to be able to market what those skills are to help get you to where you want to be. When you're considering a new university, you want to look at and research what's critically important to them and how that aligns or misaligns, for that matter, with your values and what you need professionally and personally. And then to consider things the different changes that happen in the workforce, and the fact that maybe when you were looking for a job last year, the things that people are looking for now may be a little bit different. But guess what? Things change, and we have learned, if nothing else this year through this pandemic, that we can definitely be adaptable and flexible. So to keep that in mind. There's been some great questions in the chat. You wanna, because I have a lot of great questions that were submitted, and I have some that I really want to touch on in the chat. I would like to transition to taking some of those, but I'm going to do some combining here. So some of you all will see that your question is being asked, but it's sort of hybrid because it has some similarities to some other things. So let's say we've made the decision, to the panelists, we've made the decision that we definitely want to look at another job, we want to change. Now we get to the point of negotiating. What's on the table, and how do you have those conversations about salary, about other supplemental forms of compensation like housing or relocation, all of those things? I'd like to hear from you first, Erin, in terms of what you're seeing and what you encourage or work with candidates on for them to negotiate their salary once they've decided to make a transition, or I should say total compensation, because I almost hate saying salary because I hate when reduce themselves to a singular number when there's so many more things on the table, but they never get it because they don't ask.
Right, right. So what I encourage people to do, and this is just from my own work and trying to see what's competitive out there, right? Because the market is changing on a yearly, daily basis. And a lot of times you get into a position where a university may not have done a search for somebody. They've been in their role for 25 years. And so, then you go out to the market and find out that, there are people in similar positions at institutions they would aspire to have. Those individuals come to the job and they say, oh, well, we need to come up from a market. What does that look like? I would encourage you to look at salaries at different institutions. Do your own market compensation study. Most public institutions, salary information is publicly available. And so I would go look at the position that you're currently in, as well as the position that you're aspiring to be at. Go look at 4 or 5 other institutions in the region. That way it's probably more comparable from a cost of living standpoint. Go look at those other institutions and see what those individuals are making at that institution. And then that kind of gives you a number as it relates to, what you should be asking for. Because I get it. If you don't want to feel like you're shortchanging yourself, and in tough budget times, if you ask for a number, you may not get $1 more for, depending on what the budget situation looks like. So that would be my main first stop, would be to, just do a regional search as it relates to that role and see what other institutions are doing, because that, quite frankly, is what the employer is going to be looking at. Or, from our standpoint, when we're doing those administrative positions, the employer say, well, I can do this. And I say, well, this person is at this institution and they're really good. They make X, Y, and Z, can you come up from there? And usually there is some wiggle room there. It just depends on, what kind of institution it is and what their budget perspective might be at that time. But that's where I would suggest starting, and then make your own list. After that, relocation, transitional housing, do you have a spouse that needs to come with you, for also an opportunity at the institution, or could my spouse move to the area and continue their career? How is that going to affect, myself or my family financially? Travel funds. What am I going to be successful? What am I going to need to be successful in the job? If it's a dean position, do I have faculty lines? Do I have research money? Do I have, opportunities and resources to really make myself successful, not only from a personal perspective, but successful in the role? So that's probably more than what you asked for.
No, I think this is great information. I think it's sure very helpful to the attendees. And I would say, I know I have some folks from my institution, so I'm going to give away the family secrets here a little bit, and it may come back to me. I am very big on, when I'm coaching or mentoring individuals into leadership roles, you should negotiate. You should never accept the first thing that someone gives you. It also tells them something about you, right? Are you able to advocate for yourself? Are you able to really highlight and understand and communicate what your skills are? So I think you absolutely should negotiate. We also know from research that the first salary matters. The first salary matters because it tends to incrementally build over the years in your career. And if you're starting low, then you kind of think any little bump from that, obviously it's better than what I have now, but it still may not be competitive for the skill set and the expertise that you bring. You have a value. Your skill sets are, as Carla said earlier, a commodity that has value, and you have to be able to articulate that story. But you shouldn't just necessarily go, oh, well, this is what they offered, so let's not ask. The worst they can say to you is no. Okay, you're where you started. Okay, it's not bad. Here's another thing I want to pitch over to Kim, Brittany, and Carla, because you're internal to universities. Let's say you have individuals on the call who really love their institution. They believe in or committed to the mission. They're passionate about the students that they work with. They love the people that they work with, but they just don't feel that they're growing in their current position. What advice would you give them? How do you grow in place? How do you grow within the same institution or the same organizational structure? Even though we know the higher to the top you get, the more narrow it is, the fewer options there are. But how can you grow in different types of ways? If it's not positionally, how can you still grow in terms of responsibility or other things?
Well, let me say, I think that is an important question that a lot of employees have even come to me and asked for counsel. I think what you need to figure out is what makes sense for you first. You need to evaluate, okay, where, as Caller had shared earlier, where do I see myself? What is my career goal? Is this just a job? And then I think the other point that you made, Shantae, is, can you advocate for yourself? That should be a conversation if you have a good working relationship, or if not, with your supervisor, to say, hey, if it's whether during evaluation time or our weekly meetings, hey, what does trajectory look like for me in this role? Is there room for advance? Have I hit my glass ceiling in this institution? Because remember, iron sharpens iron. So if people get comfortable, and one thing that people don't talk about is succession planning. You may have been able to offer all that you can have offered to your university or to your institution. There may be sometimes, and I want to say, I'm a Christ believing person, God makes it uncomfortable for you. Sometimes he's going to push you to move. And so you have to take those signs. If there is no longer growth, again, you need to figure out what's important to you. That networking, mentorship, coaching, calling, creating networks to see what other positions are out there that might best fit your skills and expertise. And don't be afraid to apply for them. Either you get them or you don't. But guess what? At this point, you're not being forced out your current job. So you still have a job if it doesn't work out. But now you're able to go back and kind of maybe talk on or realize where you are in the market as a skill. Like, wow, I do have these skills. Maybe I need to improve on these skills. Maybe I'm not ready. Maybe I am ready. So it gives you a better positioning where you are to what's your next steps.
Yes. Yes. And also, I'd like to add that is very, very good, Brittany, that you mentioned that, because in the event that you say, okay, I have reached a glass ceiling, or I like to say in the mean and in between time, start looking at other ways to develop your skills within that institution. So if that means looking at if there are other projects or other tasks that you can support, other programs, whether it be leadership programs or other opportunities for areas of interest, that way you can develop those skills, that way you can sharpen your saw. For one, think about stretch assignments, which is something that we utilize in the Office of Human Resources, where we look at other opportunities where we can support the university department or roles. And that way, with the stretch assignment, you can actually look at, okay, hey, what is some of the insight of other departments? This may be an opportunity for me that I've never considered. This may be a skill set that I've never even realized that I have. And now I want to be flexible and perhaps transition, or my career trajectory may go in a direction I did not have the foresight or didn't foresee. And so just being flexible with that, again, Brittany, to your point, once you've hit a glass ceiling, or while you're looking for those other opportunities as well.
Okay, what I would say is that growth is not always going up. Growth can be lateral.
Yeah.
And I say that because again, in your strategic plan, you say, okay, in 3 years, in 5 years, this is where I want to be. This is where I feel like I can or I need to be. But what is it going to take for me to get there? So while I may know human resources, do I know anything about finance? Do I know anything about student services? So growth is not always going up. Growth can be lateral in terms of you are building, remember, your marketable commodity skills. So that when you get ready to sit for that interview, you can say, wow, I work in human resources. However, I have partnered with student services. I have worked with them on numerous projects. I would say to you, volunteer, get involved. Get involved with projects on campus, get involved with projects in the community. There's always an opportunity. Any nonprofit will welcome any volunteer. I promise you. I've served on numerous boards and committees, and it is a great opportunity to get experience. And it is also experience that you can sometimes utilize on your job, but you can certainly include in your resume. You know, you chaired a board, you chaired a committee of a board. It gives you an opportunity, for example, to learn finance when you have to learn the budget of that organization. And believe me, a nonprofit organization's budget is something to learn and work with. It's always tight. So I say to you, growth is not always going up, in which in your plan, of course, it would be for you to go up. But what does it take for you to go up? And what would be beneficial? Would it be beneficial for you to learn lateral in an extra effort? Remember, we talked about what would you have in terms of your competition for a position? If you're able to sit at the table and say, while I am in human resources, I have experience in the following areas or the following departments, because I did shadow work. I worked at a company, and for that same reason, I created what was called a job swap program. I will tell you from the HR perspective, it was a nightmare. But in reality, it was a good thing for employees, because just as Kim and Brittany talked about, employees got an opportunity to go work in another area in a temporary basis in the swap, but they could see where they had a skill set that could be used in that area. And they could look at, well, this is an opportunity I could consider in the future, or this is an opportunity I never, ever want to consider in the future. So job shadowing, volunteering for projects on your campus, off your campus, in the community, anywhere that you are able to gain skills and grow and work on the things that you need work on. And you, better than anyone else, know those things. So be honest with yourself and say, where can I get that growth from? So that when I sit at the table, I am the most qualified candidate and I am a marketable commodity. And yes, I'm putting my name on this job.
Yes. Yes, this is like wonderful stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and summarize, because I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to do two things that are very, very important to me. I didn't mention at the onset of this, I currently serve as the Vice President for Administration and Membership for AABHE. So I very much so want each and every one of you all who are not currently members of our illustrious association to consider joining. And I want to make sure that I yield some time to the president. So I just want to wrap up a couple of things. One, you all talked about community being an important part of how we build networks, but also this sense of belonging as we transition through jobs. So whether we're in a pandemic or not, we need to make sure that we're considering what our needs are as it relates to our communal connections with one another at the universities, but also in the cities, towns, and neighborhoods in which they reside. Career, that we need to take command and control of our career, because ultimately we're responsible and the best person to judge what direction we want it to go in. Networking is important so that we expand not only with the circles that we're comfortable with, but if we're the smartest person, as Kim said, we need to get some more people in our circles so that we can learn. The idea of networks is to help you expand your knowledge and build on your skill set, but to also have people around you that can cultivate you into a better version of yourself as you continue to grow. We learn that is irrespective of age or time in the workplace, that you're never too young to teach someone else and you're never too old to learn new things to be able to benefit not only yourself, but the communities and the people in which you serve. We talked about negotiating. You have skills that are valuable, they're worth something. And universities are on the market looking to be more competitive in the spaces of innovation, and as it relates to even attracting students. And students come to universities often because they want to be associated or to learn from or to work with people that have different types of expertise that are of interest to them. That includes both in the faculty space, but also you can leverage your knowledge and skills and your visibility to attract students in the administrative or in staff roles. So please don't minimize that and think it's only in the faculty and research space, because I can tell you that with absolute certainty. And then I want to just say thank you to the speakers of the panel today. On behalf of AABHE and its members and the guests today, we are just grateful for your time, for your effort, for your willingness to meet with me and respond to all of my 2 a.m. emails.
Voluntold.
Yes. And I appreciate you accepting my voluntelling to do this, because I believe you have given some just invaluable nuggets of wisdom and advice. I hope that the attendees both feel inspired and motivated. Since we are entering into an era of thinking about higher education as a new way of thinking about higher education as an industry, and then embracing the myriad of changes as a result of this pandemic, not only on our campuses, but across the nation and in our personal lives. So your comments today have been very timely in reminding us not to forget about ourselves as we are serving others and being of service to others, whether that's colleagues or students. I believe we can benefit immediately from your nuggets. I hope that the attendees feel that way too, and the sound advice that each of you all have suggested. And as to the attendees, as you consider your career options, your trajectory, your transitions during this pandemic, I urge you to check out the AABHE Career Center, where you have tools and resources that will help you to propel the direction that you want to go in. We attract employers from all over, whether they're nonprofits, some corporate, higher education, all kind of institutions of different types, structure, sizes. They are coming to AABHE to look for our membership for the talent that we bring to the table. And also, for that matter, we bring talent that if the table is not conducive, they just break it down and build their own. We want you to check out our Career Center. We want you to be a part of our association, to engage in the services and the resources that we offer. Everything from job alerts to what will be forthcoming in 2021, exclusive career coaching sessions that will offer the expertise of people who are certified and credentialed in this space to be able to give you mentoring, coaching, and support. And then I'd say, last but not least, if you have not heard anything else today, please hear this. No matter what your decision is, whether it's to remain in the institution you're in or to move and grow by going somewhere else, be thoughtful, but be bold and be courageous. Don't be fearful of stepping out there, because you will never know what it is that you could have done if you don't take the first step to actually try to do it. We are here as resources beyond just this webinar. So each of the panelists have agreed to be contacted. Please connect with us on social media. LinkedIn is my favorite, preferably not Facebook, but LinkedIn. If people want to communicate with me about my institution or anything in general as far as your career trajectory, we're open to that, and we encourage you to reach out. And again, I just thank you so much for your support today. I ask that you share future webinar series with people within your network, and I will yield the remainder of the time to our president, Dr. Derek Rivares. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dr. Bolton. And wow, you know, we might change the name of this webinar series to the Power Hour. This has been amazing, and I thank my friends who presented. You got a superstar panel. You're going to get some superstar responses and some superstar bit of advice. And I hope you guys. I was taking notes. I don't know about you guys, but I was taking notes, and I hope you got a lot out of this. We certainly want to thank you, and I also paid attention to the chat. I've done many of Zooms, and it's difficult as a moderator to get all of the chat. So I want to real quickly in 30 seconds answer a couple of questions. Cover letter, very important. It's the piece that gets you in. So, you know, I have seen people with typos in cover letters. That gets you out. Take the time to make a solid cover letter. We could talk more about that. Mentoring. I've got a mentor, Pete Silver is on this call. He's one of several mentors that I have. And you would say, well, dang, Doc, you're old, you got a mentor? Always have mentors, always. It was a lesson I learned late in my career. Not should say late, I didn't learn it early enough in my career. So get mentors and then try mentoring somebody else. I see a couple of people on here that I mentor as well. So mentoring is essential. People talk about networking. I think mentoring trumps, I don't mean to say trumps, good gosh almighty. Mentoring is supersedes network, because you will get the advice that you need. You'll get the advice you need. That doesn't mean you can't network. The last piece that I saw, there was a question about DE&I, as we call it, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that's the field that I work in. I'm a chief diversity officer at Louisiana State University. And I want to tell you that there is a lot going on right now in DE&I. Tremendous opportunities. People turn around and say, well, I'm Black, so I can do diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's not as simple as that. But it's a field that is demanding our attention at this time. And so if you're interested, pursue it. Embedded in that question was, people are coming at me and I don't work in DE&I, and I'm feeling as if that's some sort of a backhanded bit of racism. Check the genuine nature of the request. If it's genuine, see if you can't help. If it's not, dust your feet and move on to the next thing. And that's my best advice to some of the questions. Dr. Bolton handled most of the wrap up that I was going to do. Welcome to AABHE. I see a number of our members on here, but I see a whole lot of folks who aren't. So join us. We're at www.aabhe.education. You'll find our website has a membership link. It has information about some of our programming. I'm wearing our LMI summer professional development program shirt today. It's a tremendous organization. To answer your networking question, aabhe.education. There's your networking answer. We have an international study tour that's going to happen in 2022. It was scheduled for this year, going to Dubai and Ethiopia. And we've been to all the continents except for, I don't think Pete has gone to Antarctica yet, but he's working on it. But we've been to Europe, we've been to Africa, Asia, North America, South America. We've been everywhere. So get involved. You can join us in an international study tour. And last but not least, I want to share the screen. We have our conference coming up in March. It's a virtual conference. And you can see there, none other than Nikki Giovanni will be joining us at our conference as a keynote speaker, March 15th through 16th. So registration will be opening soon. Very nominal registration fee, discounts for members, and we want to see you there. I promise you it's going to be more of what you experienced today, with a whole host of important topics relevant to you and being Black and working in higher education. With that, I want to thank all of you. I certainly thank Jennifer and the team for putting this together. And we just celebrated, I think most of us in here celebrated a very different kind of weekend than we've had in the last 4 years. One of my friends posted on Facebook, sorry, Shantae, she posted on Facebook what this election was like. And I can't say it in mixed company, but it was somewhat relieving. And it was an exasperating 4 years. But what do we do with the next 4 years? It's going to be important. And by the way, it's not over. We've got some important elections in Georgia and other places, and where you're from, runoffs and all the like. So stay engaged, folks. This organization will do that for you. We will continue to be engaging. We will continue to push, and we will continue to promote Black excellence in higher education. So with that, I want to sign off. I want to thank you all. And again, let's give a virtual round of applause to our panelists.
Be well, be safe out there.
Who that?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great weekend.
Who that, baby? Who that?
Who that? Yes.
Who that?
Got it.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah.